more on the story. I'm joined here in the studio by France 24 International Affairs editor Philip Turle. Philip, one of the biggest attacks, if not the biggest, since the start of the war. Why has it come now?
Right. Well, I think there are several reasons for this. The first one is, there's been this incursion into the Kursk region of Ukraine. Russia is furious about that. It's a humiliation for President Putin. He's missed his security. He hasn't managed so far to be able to push those Ukrainian forces back. This is a big setback for the Russians, even though it's a fairly small advance. So they're keen to underline that they are going to take the upper hand in this war in Ukraine. I think that's one of the reasons we've seen this attack starting now. Second reason is that this is a repetition of what we've seen a lot of times in the past, particularly since March 2022, when the war first started. That is to say that Russia wants to take out Ukraine's power grid so that it's going to plunge the country into difficulty over the winter. Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, says about half of the country's power system has been taken out over the past couple of years. What Russia wants to do now is to basically finish the job. So we've seen this massive attack over the past 24 hours that's carried on this morning. These are some of the areas in Ukraine that have been hit, as far west as Lviv, as far south as Odessa, of course, the capital, Kyiv as well. So it's all part of a Russian plan, basically, to cause blackouts, to cause electricity shortages, to cause water shortages, and to undermine the morale of the Ukrainian people.
So what's been the reaction that we've been seeing so far to these attacks in both Russia and Ukraine?
Well, Russia says it is purely attacking areas that are used by the Ukrainian military. That's been dismissed by the Ukrainian authorities. They, even the Ukrainian president himself, Volodymyr Zelensky, has described these attacks as vile, saying that now is the time for the West to stand up to this and to give Ukraine what it basically needs, and that's to say long-range missiles that it can fire into Russian territory. We've seen a gradual, over the past couple of years, increase in weapons being given to Ukraine, but Ukraine still feels it hasn't got enough to be able to properly fight this war, to fight against Russia and have any chance of reclaiming Russian territory. I think that is the big problem that the Ukrainians see. They're saying, well, look, this is another illustration of why we need those long-range missiles to be able to hit those missile launch bases in Russia, to stop them from firing those missiles into Ukraine. And also the fact that their missile defense system has been severely weakened, while the Russians have been increasing their ability to launch these attacks into Ukraine.
And you mentioned this earlier, this incursion by Ukraine into the Russian border region of Kursk, obviously an embarrassment for Putin. Do you think it's had an impact on Moscow's decision to launch the latest attacks now, and why this attack on Ukraine instead of focusing on repelling that incursion?
Well, the bottom line was that Ukraine pushed into Russian territory in a bid to put President Putin in a dilemma. Should he withdraw troops from the east of Ukraine to take back that territory in Russia, or should he not do that? So far, he hasn't done it. And I think that's something that the Ukrainians are going to be pushing for. Again, that's why this incursion has continued. The Russians aren't calling it an incursion. They're just saying what is happening in that border area to try to give the impression that they're still in control of the situation. But this is certainly a big problem for President Putin. And I think that what Ukraine is hoping is that it's going to take troops out of eastern Ukraine to make it more easy for the Ukrainians to take back some of the territory that Russia has conquered.
All right, France 24 International Affairs editor Philip Turle, thanks so much for that analysis.